Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about attribute selector in CSS. How to use attribute selector in CSS. Basically, well, in HTML, we know the attribute to be a property value pair. Equals to a value. And attributes are more like an extended property of our HTML document. So based on this extended property of an HTML document, we could also select a specific HTML element. So we're talking about to use an attribute selector as our selector in CSS. So this is a combination of our selector classes. And in XHTML, the value of the attribute is usually delimited by a opening quote and a closing quote. And every attribute must have a value in XHTML. Then in HTML, you could state the value without the opening quotes and the ending quotes. It's still valid. So how does this affect our attribute selector? Basically, attribute selector is the use of an attribute to select a particular HTML or a group of HTML elements in our CSS. So let's say we have a P paragraph open that has an attribute of what attribute I'm going to use? Let's say something common. Let's say title equals to a given value. Let's say imaginary value. And let's close this and let's close our P paragraph. And let's say this paragraph has some content. Basically, well, in CSS, if you want to select this P paragraph with this particular attribute, you could say open brace, open your square brace and type title equals imaginary. Close brace. And what this is going to do in our CSS is going to scan through our HTML document, looking for any of the elements that has this specified attribute. So it could be a P paragraph, a D paragraph, and later we're going to talk about the combination selector, how to be more specific using our combination selector. And that's just how the attributes function. There are two different ways we could select this. We could also decide to select a specific HTML element or select all the HTML elements with an attribute of title, and we open our brace and close our brace. So the first one, select HTML elements with the attributes and the specified value. And the second one, this select all the HTML elements with an attribute of Is it like, huh? Oh, title. So now we're going to go back to our HTML and back to our CSS, and we're just going to make it as one of the attributes. Okay. Now let's say we want to affect every element in the HTML that has an ID, and we're going to affect this element here. Okay, we might want to take this one out so we see the effect on other page, because this is a wrapper div and it close everything in the page. I'll just delete this for the time being, and I want to affect every other element that has an ID, and it's going to affect this div here, this div here, this one here, this one here, this one here. So I'm going to go up and I'll tab, and this is not attribute selector. I'll say ID, and open, close. I'll say tab, and I'll say background color. And let's say we give it orange, and I close. I'll save, and we're just going to drag this to our browser, and now we can see that the CSS we applied, due to using the attribute selector, we've affected every other HTML element on the page that has an attribute of ID. That has an attribute of ID. You can see here there's an element that is selected but it's not showing up, but it has an attribute of ID. And I'll control U, or for those of you who are new to web developer toolbar, go to my web developer toolbar, view source. If you don't have this add-on here in your Mozilla, you should go to your add-ons and download that from the Mozilla website, because I'm using Mozilla. So I'll go to view page, and I'll just minimize this, place it side by side so we could see some of the effects. And go up. Okay, let's go side by side and see some of the things that had this particular ID. We see here we had our intro ID, and in our intro div we had content of what? Welcome to our site. You can see it here. You can see the content, and you can see that this intro ID covers from here to here all the way down to this place. And you can see here in our HTML, all the content located within the intro ID was given that particular background color of orange. So basically, an ID, an attribute selector, is used to apply a particular HTML style rule to any element that appears that particular attribute. Now to make this more specific, we're talking about next class, we'll talk about combination selector. And to be more specific, also using the attribute selector, we may decide to give the attribute a value. That's to search for the HTML document, look for that particular attribute that has this particular value. So we're going to change this to equals to header, Ctrl V, and save. So what we're doing here, we want to select this particular div, which is our main head, and want to give the background color of orange. And if we go back to our browser, we're going to see that now you can see the stars all over the page. But if I refresh, it's going to affect only our main head. So as I refresh, you can see only our main head was affected. And that's kind of a weird effect. Let's see what's spilling out. oops, back to that, and you can see, have I saved? Yes, Ctrl X, go back to browser, load, and read more. Let's view our HTML page and see what's being selected here. IG main head. This supposed to end here. To end here. So what did we do wrong? Let's change this to. Let me change this to div. Save and preview. Oh, I thought it was not working, but this style we had here was affecting other things on the page. So I'll save again. I'll delete this one. Save, go back to my page and preview. And refresh. Okay, now you see that only the header section is affected with that column. And that's how to use the attribute selector.